All right, folks, and welcome back to Procreate. So let's go ahead now and take the next step in this rocket. Let's go ahead and clean up our layer structure a little bit. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to unlock my symmetry line, and I'm going to go ahead and delete the layer. Symmetry's done for me. I'm going to come over here, and you see once we remove the line, we've got a few areas we need to clean up with this paintbrush. So again, we're going to grab the color picker. We're going to come over to the purest blue color. We're going to make sure we're on the base rocket layer. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that that thing is all solidified. Now, if it really drives you nuts and you just can't stand it, you can go in now, and with the airbrush, I'm going to use the hard brush. I'm going to crank the size of this bad boy down substantially, and you can go through and clean up a little bit of that outline around the nose. Oops. Let's not clean up the nose, huh? All right, need to go a little bit smaller. All right. Good deal. All right, and if you wanted to, you could definitely go along the outside of the rocket and do what you do. All right, so now let's go ahead and put in the porthole. So we're going to go over here. We're going to bring this up. I'm going to make sure I got my brush selected. And I'm going to go to airbrush. And I'm going to look at the hard brush. Now we're going to go ahead and do kind of an off-white. I don't want it to be full-on white. So I'm going to go over about here. And now we're pretty much done with the grayscale palette for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go to palettes. I'm going to find that untitled one that I began. I'm going to set that as default. And I'm going to add my white over to that palette. Now, I'm going to make sure my size is right about where I want it. And I'm going to pop this bad boy into existence. Now, if I don't like the size of it, I can always come to the transform tab and I can shrink it. I can do whatever I want to do with it. All right. Looks good right about there. Perfect. All right. So we got a window. Awesome. The spaceman can see out the window. Great. Now I'm going to come back over to my grayscale layer. And I lied. We're not done with our grayscale palette. I'm sorry. I'm going to set that as default. And I'm coming back around here. Now I make sure I'm on my shading layer. I grab my soft airbrush. And I drop down on this side. And I'm just going to go in here. And I'm going to add a little bit of grayscale around the portal here. Now, see how I'm kind of staying in the areas that are already dark gray so that I'm not getting into the really light areas with the dark gray stuff. The reason you work in grayscale like this is because it will give you the ability to change colors. So let's say that later on you want to make a kind of a green rocket ship. All you got to do is go back and refill that base layer. We'll show you all that here as we go through. Okay, we're going to go ahead and crank that up. And then we're going to swing that across just like so. You see how we're kind of making that into a thing. We're starting to get that look where we know that's a little bit raised up. That's what we want. Okay. All right. I think we're pretty good there. What I'll do now is, since I've already got that color gray out, we're going to go ahead and shrink this bad boy down. I'm going to make sure I'm on this layer. And I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of gray shade in the portal. All right, cool. Spaceman needs to see out. Okay, and we're going to go up one level. I'm going to make sure I come back to here. Whoops, let's not do that, huh? That wouldn't be good. Okay, and you can lighten that up if you wanted to. All right, so Spaceship is getting there. I think we're in fairly good shape there with it. All right, go ahead and take off those fingerprint smudges. So now what we're going to do is we're going to begin texturing this spaceship. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add another layer to it. All right, we're going to call this, rename, texture layer. All right, perfect. Now the texture layer, we're going to go back to our palette that we started for the spaceship. And we're going to set it as default. And now we're going to come back to our disk. We're going to select that. And we're going to come down substantially into maybe the dark blue area. And now this is one of my favorite brushes. You go to the painting brush and you grab the Nico Roll brush. Okay. Now, in order to select just the spaceship, remember this is the reference layer. Let's go ahead and select our spaceship again. And now we are able to color on only the spaceship layer. We have our darker gray, so we're going to go ahead and put that down. And we've got the Nico Roll brush selected. I'm going to keep my opacity about half. Now look at the texture that's created on your spaceship with this brush. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this. This is actually really super cool. So texturing is all about just making it kind of look a little bit metallic, making it look a little bit weathered. You're in pretty good shape there with that. Nope, we got a little too much pattern there. Got a little bit too overzealous. You see how you can see the brush strokes in there? So keep the pressure light, keep moving, keep your brush moving. If you stamp it, you're in deep doo-doo. All right. Now we're moving on to the tail end here. Now, metallic, folks, is never just metallic, right? Is never just dark. You've also got some lights. So you're going to want to go through, and I would drop my brush a little bit for these. You're going to put some lights in there too. Okay, some light spots, some dark spots. And now notice this is on top of the other. Now, you can do something really cool with this here. We're going to go to this texture layer. We're going to go ahead and we're going to bring this up. And now, watch what happens here. We're going to go lighten, screen. Now, let's see what happens here. We're able to lighten and add a little bit of lightness to this. Oops, that's a lot of lightness to this area. So this is absolutely crucial to getting a good texture. Go ahead and drop that opacity down a little bit more. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm coming over here and I'm going to subtly do the side of the rocket. Okay. Now I'm also going to go to my airbrush and I'm going to make sure I'm there. And now with my screen still selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit up the side of my rocket. All right. Now, finishing up the texture portion of this, because I know we're getting a little bit long-winded here. Let's grab some dark purples. We're coming back down to the base rocket shape. We've still got our Nico Roll brush selected. And let's throw in some purples to kind of add a little bit of visual interest to this here. Because again, blue is kind of boring in and of itself. Now you see, because you worked in the gray zone, these purples are really showing up in these areas. This gives your rocket a really nice texture there on top of the gray area. And then we're going to come back over to the texture layer that we've set to screen. And we're going to move that bad boy up to almost a ridiculous white level. Okay, now, one of the last things we're going to do here on this screen layer, just so we know, you're going to come over here, you're going to grab the white, almost the whitest whites. You're going to come over here, and I like to use, for this one, I like to use my oil paint brush. you could also go through and use your, where is it? It's the, not an inking brush. We'll just use the oil paint. And then, making sure that you're on this layer, let's add another layer. Let's go ahead and screen this bad boy. And then what we're going to do is you're just going to come across, and you're just going to come across the portal and add a little bit of white to it. All right, folks, that's the beginning of our rocket ship. In the next area, we're going to go through and we're going to finish texturing this bad boy and get on to the next step. All right, we'll see you in the next lesson.